Good morning, everyone. Today is August 3rd, 2020. This is the coronavirus update. I hope you're all doing well. I know I started this channel and I haven't kept up on it. I thought my job was done, honestly. I started this to warn people. Once the coronavirus was widespread in the US, I figured my purpose was served. I only wish more people had seen my predictions or paid attention to my videos when I originally posted them. And I find it interesting, as I tried to warn people both online and in person, I met so much resistance. People didn't want to see the tsunami coming. They only wanted to look at all the fish stranded out of the water, and they didn't want to listen until it was too late. I recently realized now, more than ever, that it's important for me to share my knowledge and information with as many people as possible. Dark days are on the horizon, but we can overcome them together. Let me quickly share with you my story. On January 6, 2020, I noticed an article on the internet. Something told me to pay attention to it. It said something along the lines of there was 41 cases of an unknown viral pneumonia linked to a wet market in China. As I sat there and read it, it kind of stuck in my head, and I don't really know why, but something told me I had to pay attention to it, that it was going to be important. I didn't really see much about it until a couple weeks later, but on January 25th, my wife and I were preparing for our baby shower. Our daughter was going to be born in a few months, and I saw on the news that China had locked down 60 million people. They were building a hospital for 2,000 people in 10 days because that outbreak of pneumonia that had affected 41 people had grown to about 850 or so. At that point, I realized that something was going on and I needed to watch what they were doing aside from listening to what they were saying, and that's when I really started digging in. I was looking up different press releases from China, Taiwan, Thailand, Japan, Korea, translating them in Google Translate, trying to find as much information as I could about this virus and how it worked and where it was going and how long it would take to get here. And I had a feeling that it was going to get here, and I had a feeling that it was impending doom. And I wanted to warn people. So on January 31st, I posted my first video warning the world of the coming pandemic, and boy, I called it. I called the shutdown, I called the virus, even the fact that it was airborne. But I was wrong about something very important, something that I wasn't expecting. And that was the USA's response to the virus. I was dead wrong about that. The US government completely dropped the ball. I couldn't understand why they weren't testing people early on, why their criteria for testing was so strict, why they weren't telling people it was in the USA, and why they told people that masks didn't work. Come to find out, they were keeping the truth from the public, even lying to them so they wouldn't buy masks. It was disgusting, really, and I'm very disappointed in it. But all throughout February, me and my family, we were prepared for lockdown, buying supplies, doing our research, and trying to figure out how we could keep our family safe. On February 26th, that's when things really changed for us. That was the day that we discovered that one of our daughter's friends had recently come home from a trip to Italy. We pulled our kids out of school the very next day. Principals and the teachers, they thought that we were crazy, until that is, their schools were closed down 2 weeks later. On March 22nd, our economy was locked down, and 5 days later, on March 27th, our daughter was born at the hospital. It was the most amazing experience of my life and the scariest experience of my life, honestly. I remember watching the news of the hospital cases rising from 60,000 across the US to 70,000 in less than a day. No one was allowed to visit. We weren't even allowed to leave the room. And since the birth of our daughter, we've stayed in isolation. We haven't gone into any stores or seen anyone socially in over 6 months. My wife and I haven't had a date night since February. If we need supplies or food, we order curbside pickup. We don't do outdoor dining, takeout, drive-through, or delivery. We're very strict on our methods and procedures to stay safe, and all for very specific reasons. As you know, I created this channel originally to warn people the virus was coming and to prepare themselves. I predicted the pandemic, the lockdown, the fact the virus is airborne, and much more. I'm not trying to brag, I'm not trying to look for validation. The reason why I mention it is simple, to try to find the answer to this glaring question. How could a regular Joe like me, who researched all of this online, know so much about the virus so early on simply by reading press releases and using Google Translate? Meanwhile, all of the governments in the world are completely taken by surprise. How did they not know? That's the question. How did they not know? The answer, I suspect, is not the answer that most want to hear. I have a pretty pessimistic view on what all of this means for all of us, not only in the United States, but across the globe. I firmly believe the governments know and have known more about this virus than they're letting on. The fact that they're keeping things from us is what bothers me the most. The only reason for them to do so is simple. They don't think that we can handle the truth. And if we discover the truth, the governments will lose control of the people. And that's already started. Look out west. Look at Portland. What happens when they can no longer hide the facts? When that they're forced to reveal the truth? What we're about to experience, ladies and gentlemen, will be the most important event in the history of mankind. And if you think it's been bad, I think it's about to get much worse. You see, I originally created this channel to warn people, but now I see a whole new set of problems being created. And if we don't turn this around, it could be the end of the world as we know it. Here's some of the problems that I've noticed over the last few months. There's too much misinformation out there. There's still people out there who believe that this is just the flu. In fact, they don't even know this isn't a typical respiratory illness. It's a blood clotting illness. This is why ventilators aren't being used. This isn't the cold or flu. It's very different. And as long as people think that it's not a serious virus, they won't take it seriously. Too many people think that it's a hoax. Unfortunately, this issue has been politicized by both parties, and this is the worst thing that could have happened. Why is the United States the only country in the world where we can debate the efficacy of mask usage? Why? Everyone else gets it. Why can't we? Based on everything I've researched, it's way worse than they say. The governments and the media, they're both hiding information. Many people think the media is overhyping the situation. As someone who has been watching this since the middle of January, I can tell you one thing with 100% confidence. The media has been downplaying this virus since day one. I want to explain something here. The media has no desire to make people panic. They may add some dramatics to keep people watching for ratings and advertising, but neither the media nor the government want to panic people. Why? Because you can't control people if they're panicking. Panicked people are uncontrollable. The media and the government are purposely misleading the public to keep the status quo. This mentality, if it stays consistent, will be the demise of the United States of America. This thing is deadlier than they say. It's way more contagious than they talk about. The long-term effects are still not well understood, and as time goes on, there are more healthy young people being permanently damaged and scarred by this virus. It needs to stop. Last, the USA wasn't built to handle a pandemic like this, at least not the modern USA. Eradication of this virus requires strict lockdown measures. I do not have any faith in a vaccine. I don't think that a vaccine is going to be plausible here. The USA has had the least strict lockdown. They've had the least strict lockdown to date. This is why we have the most amount of cases and deaths in the USA. Our greatest blessing, our freedoms, will be our greatest weakness when it comes to stopping the transmission of this virus. With such liberties comes great responsibility. And the USA is not being very responsible right now. We need to prepare ourselves for what is to come. Unless the world bands together and makes their own personal sacrifices, we risk the system crumbling around us. The virus is transmitted strictly through economic and relationship interactions. If we all band together, we can make it through. We have a short period of time. to ensure that we're prepared for the winter that's coming. As before, I recommend you and your family store 6 months worth of non-perishable food and supplies. Start taking vitamins and minerals to help boost your system, like vitamin D3, vitamin C, selenium, zinc. All of them have been shown to be beneficial against colds, influenza, and even possibly this new coronavirus. Wear an N95 mask when you're near others, and make sure that if you must go indoors, you keep your mask on, and you also wear airtight goggles to ensure that the virus doesn't enter through your eyes. Winter is coming, folks, and it will get very cold. Prepare you and your family. We need to be able to take care of ourselves. The less we rely on the system, the better. Thanks for listening. We'll talk soon.